Hola todos! As you can clearly tell from the title, I'm back doing more A-level Spanish translations. I have 2 other translation videos already on my channel in this playlist, so check those out afterwards. The ones in this video are from recent Edexcel Paper 2s, because unlike in AQA, the essay paper in Edexcel also has an English to Spanish translation at the start of it. Just like the previous video, there will be a timer at the top of the screen. Each question is 20 marks, so I'll give myself 20 minutes. And as always, I highly recommend you attempt the translations with me and let me know how you get on in the comments below. Vamos! This first one is from 2018. I'm going to speed through myself doing it and I'll see you once I'm done. Vale, I know I've still got 5 minutes left, but I think I've done as much as I can. Every time I do these translations, I realize how genuinely tricky they are. But now let's look at the mark scheme and see how I did. I've gone through and marked my work. The vertical red lines represent the different sections, and each section is marked out of 1. So, from the top, section 1 is correct, though I did not know that the word financiera existed as an adjective, so I'm going to add that to the notes section at the bottom. And once I've finished filming this video, I'll copy the note stuff into my Anki so I can get it into my long-term memory. I've also just noticed that I put the accent on the wrong letter in Economica, but wrong accents like that are minor mistakes, so I won't dock a mark for that. In section 3, of course, it's abian and not abia. I don't know how I didn't notice that. That is definitely a major enough mistake to lose that mark. And un bajo doesn't exist, it's una baja. In section 5, apuntarse is the wrong verb to use. I wasn't exactly sure the best way to say to apply, so I picked the closest thing I could think of. Turns out aplicar as a verb does exist, so that would have been the easiest way of saying that. But the rest of section 5 is correct, which I'm happy about. For section 6 is ha estado cambiando, not sido cambiando. Although you can have ha sido plus the gerund, in this case, something is changing, so it uses the verb estar. For section 7, it's ha habido, not ha sido, which now makes perfect sense. And Marruecos is the country, so nativos de Marruecos. I'm going to revise countries and nationalities because that seems like an area that could definitely trip me up. In section 8, I can't use the gerund without saying están before. And lastly, the word for applicants is solicitantes or aplicantes. And here's the other half, I did a little better here. I'm going to quickly point out my main mistakes and move on to the more translations. Cuya meta, not cuyo meta. In section 15, I was correct with using the imperfect subjunctive plus conditional structure, but I got my spelling a bit wrong. And for section 16, the translations of such is tales. I've seen the word tales before, but totally forgot about it here. There's a couple of smaller mistakes later on which I lost marks for, so in total I got 7 out of 20. I've been a little harsh, for example not giving myself a mark for cuyo meta, even though maybe in the exam you would get the mark, I'm not sure, but it's a mistake I can definitely learn from. Time for another one. Another 20 minutes on the clock, and I promise I'll try extra hard this time to proofread because I can't afford to be making these silly mistakes. Vamos. This time I've got even more time left, but I've done all I can, and actually I think I've done much better this time. Section 1 is correct. Las telenovelas is of course a plural noun, so han sido. In section 3, I totally misread the successful as unsuccessful, which looking back makes no sense in that context. To some extent it is hasta cierto punto, but luckily they allow un punto as well. So for this first half, that's 5 out of 9, which I'm generally happy with. And the other half, the verb alcanzar needs to be in the imperfect subjunctive, which I totally did not realize, and probably wouldn't have realized in an exam. But after antes de que you need the subjunctive, it's just one of those trigger phrases. And for the plot, that spelling mistake would cause me to lose the mark, because trauma exists as another word in Spanish. The middle is mostly correct. Twice in this text, I put su when the English does not specify their national identity or their advertising space, so I'm not giving myself a mark for either of those. And at the end, ritmo galopante is what I was thinking of when I wrote galopante, but de rápido crecimiento makes much more sense. In total, that's 11 out of 20. We have reached the last question for this video. This one is from 2020, y vamos a empezar. And that's the last one done. This one was probably the hardest one yet. In section 1, Valentine's Day is El Día de San Valentín. I was really close with San Jordi, but that's something totally different. The average is el promedio or la media, not el medio. And for weather in section 10, I think quizás makes sense, but it's not in the mark scheme, so say I would have been better. For this half, that's 6 out of 10. And the final little bit. In section 16, es posible que is another trigger for the subjunctive, so sea not será. I need to be really careful with this in the future. In section 18, I was able to figure out how to say being taken into account, se están teniendo en cuenta. Hopefully is ojalá or something like con suerte is also accepted. In total, that's a whopping 13 out of 20, which still is much lower than I'd like to get, but I guess I still made a lot of small and silly mistakes. In the first question of this video, I got 7, then 11, and now 13, so that's great progress. Vale, eso es todo para este video. Muchísimas gracias por ver y haz clic en el enlace en la descripción para ver mi página web. Adiós.